Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Sales Dev Squad. We have a very special guest for you today, Ms. Alexandria Smith, who is the current SDR Manager over at Headspace. A little bit about Alex. She has a repeated track record of building effective sales teams, producing significant revenue results through pipeline and people management. She is dedicated to assembling sales culture, tools, data, resources, and communication channels that allow her team to be successful in their roles. She is also canyoned through the waterfalls in Patagonia, Argentina, and just a really great person to have here on the Sales Dev Squad podcast. She has worked for some of the hottest tech startups in Los Angeles, including Flexport and most recently Headspace. Thank you so much for joining us today, Alex. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. I am super, super happy to be chatting today and just sharing a little bit more about the sales world and hoping that some of it resonates with all of us out there trying to get it.
Absolutely. That pumped me up here for the next question. So let's go ahead and dive into it, Alex. So I'm really excited to chop it up with you. I guess for starters, do you mind sharing with us a little bit more about your background into sales and what you guys are doing over there at Headspace?
Yeah, I would love to share a little bit more of the journey. So it's been awesome, first and foremost. The way that life works is just so wild. But so I started, I'm originally from South Florida. So I was born and raised in South Florida, but my dad and my brother come from a really blue collar family and had to really start working since I can remember. I was, washing people's cars on the streets when I was 9 and 10 years old. And, I've always worked for, everything that I have. So I'm super, super humbled by everything that's brought me here. But in the meantime, I ended up getting a full ride scholarship to the University of Alabama, and I was on a speech and debate team. And little did I know that I was getting basically formal sales negotiation training before I even started the career in sales. And I was really fortunate for that experience. And after my time at the University of Alabama, I took my first sales job in New York City working for a company called Single Platform. And it was really where I learned how to sell, no doubt. It was a 120-person sales floor. The company got acquired twice when I was there. I had no idea what I was doing, and I did everything. I was a sales development rep. I became an account executive. I crushed it, and I had the opportunity to move on the management team. And so I was an enablement manager, and I really helped people learn the fundamentals of sales. And I was super passionate about it. I love to teach. And after Single Platform, I was with them for about 3.5 years. And it was such an incredible ride, but, candidly, I don't come from money. For me, making money for the first time in sales and being in New York City opened my eyes up to this world that I didn't even know, which was travel. And that was on my mind for sure and heavy in my heart. And so I decided to sell my things in New York. I guess you could also call it like an eat, love, pray moment, maybe. And I decided to go and travel for a year. So I took a year off and I went to South America. So I went to Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina, Chile, Peru, Colombia. And I went by myself, and everyone thought I was a little crazy at the time. My dad didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. But with that being said, I came back and obviously got punched in the mind, heart, and soul. And I really wanted to learn a lot more about mental health. I realized that there's this whole world when you start getting perspective, as heavy as it may be, to explore about yourself. And so when I came back to the States, I made a promise to myself to really invest in that. And I ended up then deciding New York was not the place for me to be doing that. And I, at the time, moved out to the West Coast and said, okay, let's see what's going on out here. I've heard that San Francisco has got some things going on. And so at the time that I was interviewing, I was looking for other sales management positions, and, but I was in like a very, you could say slightly stubborn place, but definitely not going to settle. I just came back from this trip. I was looking for that like bomb-proof spark working relationship of something that I was dying to care about. And I just kept on going back to my yoga practice because I just really gotten into it, because there's no gyms when you're in the jungle. So you have to learn other things to do with your body for exercise. And I did that, and I decided to, I got really into the studio that I was at. It was called Ritual Hot Yoga. And I decided to then go full in on building yoga studios in San Francisco with a woman named Lindsay, and she's amazing. And she wanted someone to help her come in and do that. And I said, let's do it. And then at the time I got my yoga certification, and I lived in an ashram, and that was wild. And it was such an amazing experience. And I really wanted to learn where yoga and breathwork and meditation came from. And so did a deep dive study course with them for 6 months while I was doing the yoga thing. And, at the time, 3 studios later, I had been teaching sold out classes to hundreds of students, and it was incredible. I was definitely crawling back to the sales world for sure. And I was open, and a company called Flexport had reached out to me, and they were looking for an SDR manager to grow their office in LA. And I was so excited about the company, so excited about the opportunity. And, fast forward, I moved down to LA, and I ran their sales development team, but also started the global function. I was the first outside sales SDR manager that they had. And then after I came there, we developed, 6, 7 other SDR teams globally. And it was awesome. Yes. And then fast forward, how did I get to Headspace? So, I feel so thankful when I say this, but, I've been thankful. Sales network is everything. And so my sales network, I only found this out recently, referred me to the CRO at the Headspace at the time. And they reached out to me, and I was like, what do they need a sales manager for? I'm already paying for it. What's going on here? And I learned about their Headspace for Work program, and I was just, it's a new program. I'm excited to talk to you about it. And so for them now, I am wearing many hats other than SDR manager right now, no doubt, because Headspace for Work is very small within the Headspace organization. It's very startup-y. We've only been operating for a few quarters, and we've done most of our hiring in the last 2. So hyper growth, hyper chaos, hyper fun. And yeah, that's pretty much what I've been up to.
That's really amazing. And I think what just really sticks out to me about you is just like your energy. You're super thankful, super grateful. And that's such a tremendous journey that you've had, all the way from your first SDR gig in New York all the way to the beaches of Santa Monica for Headspace.
Nice. That's right. It's been a journey for sure. So I'm really excited to be where I'm at right now, though. There's no time like the present. So
yeah, appreciate that. And I feel like, Alex, like from your personality, like you would obviously be like a really great closer. I feel like you kind of have that closer mentality. Like, who wouldn't want to buy anything from you? I'm automatically sold on Headspace from you already. But I'm just kind of curious, like, why do you think your passion has lied in more of like managing as opposed to like a closing role? Like, it seems like you really just enjoy teaching and mentoring others. Like, where do you think that stems from?
I mean, it definitely stems from my upbringing. I have the world's greatest father and brother. They're like father and brother and dad of the years for sure. And, my father instilled a lot of confidence in me and, told me that I can do anything. And I think it just stems from having a support network of encouragement to recognize your own potential, right? So people around you who are supportive of your ideas and the things that you are passionate about. And also people who pull things out of you that you don't see yourself. So, and that I can attribute to having, a really strong relationship with my brother and my dad. And then not only that too, but I've always said yes to the opportunity. And I think it's because it wasn't necessarily set up for me. I've always kind of had this mentality where I need to go out and I need to get it. Going to college was not going to be an option unless I found out how to get it paid for. Going to college was an option if I wasn't going to work the whole time. Like those just things that are so fundamental that add up over time that really kind of build the character of what it's like to do things and be successful. And when I've done things and I've become successful, I've wanted nothing more than to share that with other people for them to be successful. And I quickly realized that that was where I was receiving the most fulfillment. You know, the idea of being the number one rep shifted to being okay being in the president's club and still being hanging with the crew, but really spending that extra time to help and really, you know, inspire the people around me. And so I think that's, you know, stemmed this career of teaching and management. And I truly love seeing other people get it. It's so exciting. And the friendships and the things that people have done for me in my sales network have blown me away. And I've been lucky to work from some really incredible sales leaders that have just built that strong foundation for me. And I just want to give it all back, because that's the best part. It's the best part about what you're doing over money, over the day-to-day BS. It is absolutely the best part about managing people.
Absolutely. What a great answer. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think us as salespeople and in the sales community, we always have to give back to the members of our community, whether it's just a skill or a tip or something like that. So that's really awesome to see that you're just really thankful for everything that's been received by you, and you just try to pass it down.
For sure. And I love sales. Like there's not a better feel. Don't get me wrong. I've got that competitive nerve, no doubt. I don't come from money, so I like to make money. And also I like to work for things that are really impacting people's everyday lives. So, I mean, when you combine all those things, sounds like you're made for sales.
Seriously. It's a win-win all around for sure. Yeah. That's awesome, Alex. And like one thing that really stuck out to me on your like LinkedIn profile was just how passionate you are about, you know, culture, like internal culture, sales culture, your team culture. So I was just curious, like, from your experience, like how important is culture to any organization or sales organization? And furthermore, can having like an internal culture impact the results of a sales team?
Absolutely. An internal culture can impact the results of a sales team. You know, one of the biggest responsibilities that I believe that I have is to create an environment where motivated people can succeed. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to be micromanaging that's going to move the dial. It's going to be the culture and the reasons why people show up that produce the results that are going to move the needle for growth. And that has been something that I've seen in some of the best sales organizations, and I've been in not so great sales organizations. And it continues to be one of the largest differentiators to the success of the business, because it feeds into so many other things, like also employee retention. And you're only as good as the people who want to stay and work with you. And it becomes really hard if you have a challenge with attrition, and it becomes really difficult to inspire people when there's not a culture of winning that's implemented. And so I find that to be an imperative focus for any sort of leader that goes into any organization. That should be always top of mind.
Absolutely. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about, like, I guess the culture at Headspace, or the culture that you try to build within your team?
Yes, absolutely. So the culture at Headspace is very dynamic, and I'm still learning, by the way, because I've been there 5 months now. So I've been in a little bit of the Headspace for Work bubble, only because we are very, very, very startup-y right now. We're just like trying to get the organization right at the moment, which has been like a treasure map, but we're getting it together. And this is the fun part, right? There's something I really enjoy about companies at this stage. And it's truly because, one, the impact that you're making is so strong. And the other thing is that you have a lot of autonomy in what you're doing. And so that's exciting. And the impact is going to be so big and so visible when things start going really well. So the way that I mold that into the team is, first of all, starting with the reason why we're here, right? And for Headspace right now, it's to improve the health and happiness of the world. And that's a very big mission.
It is a big mission.
It is very real. It is very real that this is something that people want and are already searching for. And the reason why Headspace for Work is such an interesting niche is that we spend most of our time, at least in America, at work. And it's really important, you know, as we consider growing healthy businesses and providing employees with tools to be successful, that we consider their mental well-being. Those things go hand in hand. And mental well-being is a direct reflection of how people perform in their roles. And I think that if you invest in that particular area, you're obviously going to receive it on the other end, no doubt. And so, for the team, we got to practice what we preach, right? So my whole thing as a manager is that we live what we sell. And that means taking whatever time that we need as human beings to do what we need to do to put ourselves in the best position to succeed. You need to work from home. You need to take some time off, please. Don't make me do it for you. But I really believe in giving, I would say, near perfect autonomy and full accountability to what people are doing. And if you create those kind of environments, people will succeed. And, I think that has been the biggest secret sauce since I've been a manager in the last 6 or 7 years of the transformation of how a team can be run. I've tried a lot of different ways. I started one way and I'm out this way right now. And, through that evolution, you make a lot of mistakes. And of course you experience success, but it's the most important to adapt and to evolve and recognize what is going to make this person's life happy and healthy. And that's what a good leader should focus on. So more so getting my priorities right.
Absolutely. So I guess, is it safe to say trust and respect between a manager and an SDR is almost a necessity if you want to produce solid results?
Absolutely. People need full autonomy in what they're doing. And don't get me wrong, you want to hire people that are coachable and want to learn and that are hungry and have all of those attributes for sure. And there's going to be a time when you're going to have to step in, as a manager and lead, but the whole idea is to build leaders. And, you want to build leaders and give people the autonomy that they need in order to be successful. So full transparency, full trust, but at the end of the day, though, when I say the most important part to all of that is full accountability.
Mm-hmm.
I have all my trust. So if we don't meet the mark, that's a different conversation, right? That's the accountability part. That's talking about why is that? What are we doing to put ourselves in that position? Why are we behind? And that's where the accountability starts. And I expect people to have that conversation prepared when we're talking about numbers and forecasting and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I guess going on the subject of accountability, let's just say, for example, you have a rep on your team that's doing everything they can. They're coming in early. They're showing just full commitment. They're giving it your all. They're taking your advice. And for whatever reason, they still cannot produce, or maybe having a bad month. What are some of the ways you do to help reps kind of in that situation?
Yeah, this is a great question. First and foremost, sales leaders, we don't have all the answers, and we can't cure all the situations out there that people are trying to work towards in their own growth and career path, number one. But with that being said, just a disclaimer, there's a lot of things that you can do with people to help navigate the next step for them in their career. So I think the first and foremost, is recognizing can't do, won't do. So I've managed people in my career where they have all the potential in the world and they just don't feel like making the dials, or they just don't feel like doing a lot of the job. And you can see that in the numbers. Sales is very, very transparent, right? And then when you ask people hey, you made 10 more a day, the numbers say that it'll shake out to X if we do that. Is there that commitment? And if that's the thing that continues to fall short, that's a different type of conversation, right? But when I say the can't do, it's if we are doing all those things that you're talking about, right? And we are going above and beyond, and we're coming in and we're taking in the feedback and doing all that good stuff. What's the next move? So first and foremost, I would hope that in that process, we would never get to the point where we are so far down the pipeline that we haven't tried the things that I'm going to talk about. But you definitely have to have a buddy. You have to have someone that is doing the job really well that you can seek out to for help as well. You got to have another resource other than me. And that's also a part of my job, is to navigate internal resources for you that are also going to help you. Feedback might land a lot better from one of your peers. feedback might land better from another sales manager at the company. You know, it's about giving you as many resources for feedback as possible in order for you to implement the things that you feel the most comfortable with. So typically the things that you feel the most comfortable with end up sounding the most natural. Natural equals persuasion, persuasion equals, you know, there's a lot of things that are baked into it. But the other thing too is I am not afraid to have the conversation right up front with someone about how they actually feel in a role where they're not necessarily performing. Like, do they feel that they're still like totally set that like sales is their path for them? Because as we know, as salespeople, if we are not experiencing success, that can feel really demoralizing sometimes. And sometimes it's an honest conversation with yourself. It's like, am I not really all that into it? Or am I like gung-ho on being a salesperson and I'm just going through a tough time? So I also like to help people navigate, like, are we just going through a tough time? Or is this something that we're recognizing that is not necessarily for us? And that's an okay conversation to have. But we learn a lot from having those candid conversations. And I personally, the SDR function, what I love about it is that it is a solely like up or transition type of role for people. You know, it tends to be the AE route as the North Star. That's great. But for me, I've seen and transferred so many people in so many different parts of the organization where they are just crushing it. And that has become their career. And sometimes a little bit of that was me kind of steering that ship and showing them that they have really incredible strengths that can be applied to like a very critical business need that's in a different part of the organization. Or we really try to diagnose what is that thing that's holding them back from being successful in sales and whether or not that's the career path. So a bit long-winded, but that would be the way that I would approach the situation. So it's multidimensional and obviously it's very situational.
Absolutely. Really, really appreciate that. And I guess like going on that, let's say, for example, you had someone who maybe didn't know they wanted to be like a salesperson, or maybe have like that negative connotation of a salesperson in their head. And maybe that's kind of gearing them not to go down this path. But do you think the SDR role is a great role for anyone just out of college, just to get some experience in relationship building? Maybe if it's not something that they want to pursue, like as an account executive or a sales manager role?
Yeah, I mean, I think we put a lot of pressure on people when they get out of college for them to figure it out. And we don't, that's not the expectation. And that's what I love about the sales development function, because it gives people an opportunity to be exposed to certain things that they're interested in. And then obviously the hiring manager, depending on who that hiring manager is, AKA if it were me, I would obviously assess this person's like skill level, whether or not I think that they would be successful in the role. And candidly speaking, if I didn't see some sort of sales potential, I probably wouldn't hire them for the role, right? It's a two-way street. I want you to be successful. You know, you want to be successful and also try this thing out. But like at the end of the day, we're running a business. We want to make sure it's a mutually good fit. So I would definitely view it that way. And then also to your, to your previous point that you talked about, I would consider that in any sort of situation like this, that we're just being really careful about who we're bringing in. And again, I think that anybody from any sort of background can come in and have a great shot at this job. And I would highly encourage anybody that's even considering sales to go into a sales development role. It's amazing. And if you work for the right person, if it doesn't work out, they're going to find another amazing place in the company to put you. And that's the kind of place that you want to work for.
Absolutely. A foot in the door, or just an entryway into the company that you like. Absolutely. Really appreciate that. And I guess would love to like shift gears a little bit more into like sales management. I guess from your experience, Alex, have you noticed kind of like common mistakes that a lot of like new managers make, or someone who kind of steps into like a new sales management role? Any like entry level mistakes that a lot of new managers make, perhaps?
Yeah, I can speak for myself, and
from your experience.
Definitely. And I can also speak for, some of my peers that I've seen move into management roles. I think it's really easy to feel the pressure of the transition, changing from you're owning what you're doing and then now you're influencing. And the influencing part gets lost because we are so focused on just wanting to hit that number so we can like keep our job, and like we think that representing the number is a representation of our management style. And in the beginning, that's really hard because obviously it takes time to build that. So I tend to see a lot of people in their management positions when they're first moving into them are very micromanaging, for sure. They are no doubt they're on that clock because Lord knows this is a new position. They can't fail on it and we need to hit this number. And so because of that, I'm going to push everybody else. And then people were like, whoa, like, where have you been? Like, we were totally cool last week. And it's just it's a really interesting juxtaposition. And it's especially challenging for people who are moving up from being high performers in their role to now managing their peers. That's especially difficult. But I find that the micromanaging part is definitely, I was no doubt a micromanager for sure. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to get through to certain people. Also, some nights I would just loosely try to figure out like how I was going to get through to this person that was my peer, that is now my, person that's reporting into me. And it's hard. But I think it does require that kind of go through, right? And it's hard to loosen the reins when you're in something new and you want to be successful, but you're actually not in control. That's the hard part. So I think that's, the common denominators that I see with new people is just that relinquishing the control and not being in control of that number anymore and having other people that you need to influence to get there. And because of that, end up micromanaging quite a bit. And people feel a little bit uneasy about that.
That's super helpful. So I guess to kind of sum that up, just kind of focus on your people and how to get stuff done through your people.
Yes, for sure. I think that actually you bring up a really good point and segue. It's about getting to know the people on your team on an emotionally intelligent level, genuinely understanding who they are, where do they come from, what is their favorite food. Like we spend so much time together and we should know these things about each other a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we spend more time together than with any other people in our lives. And so I think that investing in people and understanding who they are, what they want, allows you to be the most helpful. And the helpful you are to them, the more that they're going to want to work for you and the more that they're going to want to work towards the mission that your company is going for. And so I think it all starts there. And that would be, I would say, the biggest piece of advice to look inwards on when you're first stepping into these type of roles is, how can I help these people in a way first of getting to know them?
Mm-hmm. I love that. Really, really appreciate that, Alex. And I guess our next question here, what have you noticed amongst like some of your top performing reps, either at Flexport or Headspace, that they do to kind of help sharpen the axe and really improve upon their craft?
So that's another really fun question to talk about because I have had the opportunity to work with quite a bit of high performers out there. And I'm so thankful that we're all still pretty tight too. So first and foremost is the attitude. Number one, the attitude. You cannot have any success if you don't have a strong fundamental attitude towards what you're doing, and a positive one for sure. A learning mind, a growth mindset. What we call in yoga is a beginner's mind, right? Being really curious as you're approaching new things and being open to the change and adaptable. And so I think that, first and foremost, hands down, the people that I know that are the most successful have an extremely positive mental attitude. They're also extremely confident, always very confident. And that takes time to build, but that's what I like to call, a little bit of that like shit you can't teach. That is like the swag that comes with the territory. And what I find about confident people is that, before you're even starting any sort of like, confidence is interesting because it doesn't attach to any specific identity, right? And that's something that you build through other things that you've done in your life. It's not like, oh, I just became good at sales, so now I'm going to be confident, right? Like typically people that walk in already confident about something going on, that they're able to carry themselves a certain way is persuasive. And people are inspired by that. And people buy from people that they like and people that they're influenced by. And so I think that is a really fundamental quality that runs through the veins of top performers. And then, of course, you get into the other things like, at the end of the day, absolutely working for a company that's got a great mission, that's making a big impact, 2 thumbs up. However, I would say that most top performers are extremely, extremely money motivated. No doubt. That there's something about the game, that there's something about the competitiveness, there's something about the negotiation or adrenaline that happens when you're closing deals and making relationships with people or getting uncomfortable with the uncomfortable, something about that whole thing, and then making a check because of all that is definitely something that I ticks in people who are really successful. So I would say, and also being coachable, right? That is no doubt one of the most important factors of anybody being successful as a top performer. These are people who are constantly open to, I think, receiving feedback to get to the next level, because you will plateau. Like the potential level, it only goes so far if you're not willing to learn other things. So I think that's another one. So those things.
Absolutely. Really, really appreciate that, Alex. And just a couple of last questions here. I guess for anyone that's listening to this podcast right now that is potentially considering a sales development role, what kind of tips can you provide for them?
That's an awesome question. So I think that making sure that you let the hiring manager know that you're extremely coachable and you're extremely hungry to learn. Because at the end of the day, going into the sales development function, we don't expect like people to have experience. We hire people with little to no experience. But if you are willing to be coached and you are hungry to learn, then this is going to be a great relationship, because then I can teach you how to be successful. And so that's a really big mutual thing that I would say that any good hiring manager is looking for. The other thing too is that I think that people need to be also positive, right? That needs to be an innate quality that comes out when you're speaking to someone. Because again, about the attitude, if that's something that you really want, you have to display in some sort of way the characteristics of what you're going to need when things get tough. It's tough, no doubt. There's a reason why salespeople are some of the highest paid people in every single organization out there, and it's because it's not easy. And so I think displaying some sort of resilience that can parallel, that can show, I think that people, we are not so much in a place of mainstream interviewing yet, where I believe a lot of hiring managers maybe not make it comfortable, but I love when people share something tough that they've been through. I love when people share something that they've overcome. Those things are so just fundamental to being a human being and working in a tough world, let alone sales. And I think that people should feel encouraged to be proud of the things that they've needed to do to get to where they need to go, and to be confident when they say that information to you. And I think it should be proud of where you come from and what you've done. I think that those are the biggest things: to be proud, to be confident, and also to be coachable, and making sure that that is definitely a known factor.
That's super inspiring, Alex. Really, really appreciate those helpful tips. And I guess on the contrary there, for anyone listening that is maybe a current SDR who's considering a role in sales management or sales enablement, I feel like you're the best person for these tips here. But I guess what advice can you give them perhaps?
Come on, let's do it. I love it. No, this is that is my favorite part about management, is actually when people say that they want to be managers. I get so excited about that, because you'd be surprised, for every 10 people on the team, like 8 of them, I would say 5 to 8 of them, the North Star is the AE route. A couple people want to do other things. You don't necessarily always get people coming forward and saying, you want to know what? I would love to be an SDR manager. I hope that more people want to do it, because it's amazing. It's so much fun. You get to teach people. You get to see them take their career off, which has been the most rewarding thing. And it's given me lifelong friendships, for sure. And it's just an absolute joy to watch people just soar in their career. And it's also opened up plenty of personal opportunities for myself, by the way. But with that being said, I would so encourage people to do it. It's such a beautiful thing to be able to build a work and life balance of where you're giving back to other people, and you also get to do something that you really love, that you're good at. So I think all of those things are a win-win. And also it's kind of, this might be scary for some people, so I hope I'm not deterring anybody.
No, please.
But doing a management position is almost like holding a mirror up to yourself. You can't not practice what you preach, and you really have to be accountable to be a leader. That means signing up to be continuously learning. That means signing up to continuously be pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. That means to continuously be like understanding like what you need to do actually as a human being to be a better version of yourself. And that's made me become such a strong woman. And I think that continues to be just like the core of the growth and evolution of the person that I've been becoming.
Mm-hmm.
So if that sounds good and not too heavy, come on.
I love it, Alex. You're inspiring me to just drop what I'm doing right now and apply to all the SDR manager jobs.
Yes, I love it. That sounds great.
Alex, really appreciate your time today on the Sales Dev Squad podcast. Before we head out here, if anyone listening would like to, I guess, just reach you directly, answer any questions, or kind of explore career opportunities at Headspace, where can they find you?
Yes. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me, Alexandria Smith, and definitely send me a LinkedIn message. Also, you can always reach me at alex.smith@headspace.com. And of course, there's always my personal email too. I'm super happy to extend that out to people that are interested in being mentored to the next level in their career opportunities, anything that I can do. I would love to keep expanding my network as well. So that's alsmith1012@gmail.com. So lots of ways to get in touch. I love to be in touch. I want to keep networking as much as possible. And I am just very excited to extend myself as a resource.
Thank you so much, Alex. Really appreciate all your energy and all your confidence that you bring here, and really just your passion for helping others and passing it forward. So just want to thank you again for being a really great guest today on the podcast.
Thank you, Dale.
Of course. So thank you, Sales Dev Squad community. We'll catch you on the next one, but thank you, Alex, for hopping on.
Yeah, thank you.